on Sundays with Subscribers yesterday, we had an interview with a young woman named Frances Stout and her mom, Amy. So Frances, admittedly, she thrust herself into the public spotlight after her last JV basketball game of the year. She made a decision to sit out. She didn't even make it past warm-ups. She decided to sit on the bench because a biological boy was competing on the opposing team, the Shelton girls junior varsity basketball team. So Frances had told herself a long time ago and had told her parents, if I'm ever faced with a situation where I have to play against a biological boy, I'm going to sit out. And her parents supported her in that. So when she realized there was a biological boy, she said, I'm not playing. So she was so frustrated with how everything played out that she took to social media. I'm not going to read her whole post, but she goes through kind of what happened. The fact that she sat out. She said, I made the decision to sit out of my very last basketball game of the season because I refuse now and forever to compete against any biological male in any sport that I play. I was incredibly distraught at the fact that nobody would step in on our behalf, including staff, coaches, referees, and parents from both sides. This is due to the sheer fact that in our society, we have been pushed to be silent and bow down to the demands to accept what we know to be untrue. So after that post went out there, and there was a lot of drama, as you can imagine, following that post with the school telling her you have to take it down, the father of the trans athlete sending relentless text messages to Frances's mom, Amy, saying, I'll come to your house if you don't answer my phone calls. It was all nuts. But we played an interview. We did an in-depth interview that aired on Sundays with Subscribers yesterday with Frances and Amy. Here's part of it.
I saw my mom having a conversation with my coach and something seemed to be up. And she told me, she said, there is a man on their team. And I looked over and sure enough, there was. And so I made the decision to sit out and I did not play 1 minute of that game because I have a right to for my safety and I should be allowed to play against girls. And so, yeah, I made the decision to sit out and not play.
Wow. So when did you notice, Mom?
So I noticed we came in after Frances and her team had already started warm-ups, mm-hmm. we being my husband and son and I. And I pretty much noticed right away. We went up to the bleachers, got our seats, and then I was watching warm-ups and I saw this person right away. The year previous, Frances was on the C team, mm-hmm. and we had noticed this person mm-hmm. on the JV team last year.
Okay.
But it wasn't an issue. Frances had not played against them because she was on a different team. Mm-hmm. It did become an issue at the end of that game last year when Frances went into the locker room mm-hmm. and this person was in her locker room.
Mm-hmm. Same player.
Yes. Okay. She came out crying, very upset that she went into her locker room where her personal items were being kept and this person was in there. Mm-hmm. We didn't say anything. We talked as a family at this time and said, look, if this becomes an issue in the seasons to come, you have a right to make a decision on whether or not you want to sit out. And she made that decision at that moment last year that I will never play against someone other than a girl in mm-hmm. my sports. Mm-hmm. So this year, as my husband and I walk into the game and I notice, I said, that's that same player and that's not a girl. And so I walked down to the varsity coach and I said, is that a boy on their team? And he said, I cannot make a statement on this. However, I'm in agreement with you. And mm-hmm. he said, you need to go talk to the athletic director. I said, okay, can you point me? I am not a parent that is always in the ear of the coach, the athletic director, the teachers. I am, if my kids need to send an email, they're sending the email. Mm-hmm. I'm not my kid needs to play. They work for it. And that's the kind of parents we are. That's who we've raised them to be. So I hadn't met the athletic director before. I'd seen him at games.
Was he at the game?
He was at the game.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And so I went up to him and I said, can you tell me if that's a boy on the court down there? And he said, I am not going to say that. We do not discriminate. And I said, well, you're discriminating against my daughter by putting her out there potentially against a boy player. And he said, well, we follow WIAA and Washington state law. I said, President Trump yesterday signed an executive order that went into federal law yesterday. Mm-hmm. He said, we do not have to follow that. We follow Washington state. At that, I was thoroughly disgusted, and I went back to my seat. There was not a scene at this time. I went back to my seat. I told my husband what just took place. Frances had already made the decision to sit out. And as far as I was concerned, I was going to follow up with it a different time, with an email, with a collection of, support through parents who I know feel the same way, to maybe do it not in the moment. It wasn't until I had noticed, what was going on with this player on the court, that I asked my son to go take some video. I wanted it to be recorded that this player was in fact playing, that the athletic director was in fact there, that the principal was there, and that everyone was aware of this. So I asked him to go down and take some video, not as a spectacle, like in a rude way, as a quiet, just go down and take some video. So as he went down and started videoing, another employee of the school came up to him, got in his face, and said, "You better think twice about what you're doing right now."
Wow.
And stood
to your
right
junior
to
high
my
son.
to my 13-year-old son. And this is a bigger man that did this, and my son was obviously taken aback by someone getting in his face, and he said it again, "You better think twice about what you're doing." And he turned the video off and came up and told me, and that's when I became enraged. So it wasn't the issue that enraged me, it was that set off in that moment that someone came up to my son and told him he needed to turn this video off, and threatened him, "You better think twice." I don't agree with this issue. That's why I'm here today. But they wanted to hide this. They didn't. And through further conversation, that brought me to talking to this person, and he said, well, his intent was to put it on social media. I said, you can't speak to my son's intent. He's 13. He doesn't even have social media. And that's when the principal came over and the athletic director. And at that, the principal was trying to hush us back around the corner to where people weren't, hearing the conversation. And he said, "Are you telling me Frances is never going to get knocked down or potentially injured by someone bigger, stronger, or faster than she is?" And I just said, "Are you willing to be quoted on what you just said to me?" And he didn't know what to say.
Wow. So Frances, while this is happening, you've made the decision. For you, is that did you tell the coach?
I went and sat down on the bench. I have to get taped before the game and everything, and I already was taped and for my ankle. And I took my tape off. I put my normal shoes on and put my warm-up shirt back on. And my coach said, "Frances, are you okay?" And I said, "I'm not playing. There's a boy on the team." And all I heard back was okay. And that was it. And so I sat the bench the rest of the game, and I didn't say anything bad. I sat there and was quiet and obviously upset, but I did not cause a scene until I saw one of my teammates get hurt very bad and have to get taken off crying, and that's what set me off crying, because I care deeply for her, and to see her get hurt.
So your coach seemed to understand.
My coaches were understanding, but nothing was done to stop the game from going on and letting him play.
What do you make of the fact that you, a 15-year-old girl, have to be the one to take a stand when all these adults around you wouldn't stand up for you guys?
I think it's a shame, because I am young and I'm still a teenager, and to think that I have to be the one to stand up. I'm not afraid to stand up. I am very strong in my beliefs, and I'm not scared, but I do think it's a shame that I have to be the one.
What was the response like to your post?
I did have a lot of support, but I also had threats that made. I had people telling me I'm going to hell. I've had people saying, "Good luck having any future after this," and saying, "I know all of the people right now that are reporting your account are just happy to see your downfall, and know that it's going to be a real rough time for you in your future because of your decision to post this."
Threatening to get jumped, threatening to, "I hope you choke on an expletive and die. I hope," very awful things to say to a 15-year-old who was only ever trying to stand up for herself and what she believes.
I also saw an email from the school that said that they're kind of launching this investigation into accusations of harassment and bullying. Did you harass and bully this player?
No.
Did you do anything that could be construed as harassment or bullying?
No, I've never been the kind of person to go out of my way to make people feel bad about themselves, and I have been a person to stick up for others, and I've been known for that, to be a good friend to people, and I think it's wrong to go and bully someone and go out of your way to do that. I was sticking up for my rights, and I expressed that to the school, and it is me saying that I'm, as a female, have the right to play against females, and that was it.
What would you say to, the folks who head our public school system, to our elected leaders who have said that they plan to fight the Trump administration tooth and nail on his decision to ban men from women's sports?
Well, I think, what about fighting for us? What about fighting for the girls who are completely against it and feel like they can't do anything because they've been silenced? And I've had multiple people reach out to me and say, thank you for saying something. I've experienced this, and I was too scared to say something myself, and I felt like I didn't have anyone there to listen. And why, if they care so much about the men being able to play in female sports, do they not care about how the female feel about it, how the girls feel, and how it affects us and everything we've worked for? So,
what would you say to President Donald Trump?
Well, I would say thank you for standing up for us, and I think that it is so important, and I appreciate it, because I think that is something that I wish I never had to deal with in the first place, and the fact that he is taking a stand against it as well. I'm forever grateful for that.
So that's part of our interview that aired on Sundays with Subscribers with Frances and her mom, Amy. It's about an hour long. I suggest you go watch the whole thing. You can sign up undividedpod.com. Usually we don't play such long clips from our Sunday show on the live show, but there's a reason, and it really comes down to fairness, that we wanted to play for our entire audience her side of the story and her explanation of what she did. It is because tomorrow on our live show, we are going to be joined by the transgender athlete from the Shelton team and that athlete's father. We're actually taping that interview today. So out of fairness, on the show tomorrow, we're going to play a pretty good chunk of it. I think it'll be a fascinating conversation. The entire story will air this week on Sundays with Subscribers. I've had a phone conversation with the transgender athlete's father. We had a pretty frank discussion, and he even showed his child some of my coverage of the transgender issue. They're fully aware that I don't believe that biological boys should be competing against girls. And so it is with a full knowledge of my position on this issue that they've agreed to come in. I think they're to be applauded for that. We haven't taped the interview yet. In fact, it's happening after the show today. The transgender athlete's name is Andy. I'm impressed that Andy's willing to come in, knowing my position on this issue, knowing the criticism, and to talk to me. I've never interviewed on this show or otherwise a transgender individual, certainly not a minor, certainly not someone at the center of an issue this controversial around protecting girls' sports. So needless to say, I think it's going to be a pretty interesting show tomorrow. So that is why I played a big chunk of what Frances and her mom, Amy, had to say before we have Andy and Andy's dad on the show tomorrow. So pretty interesting stuff. So before that happens, go back for sure and watch that full interview with Frances and her mom, Amy. Now, as all of that is happening, right on cue, the teachers union is coming to the defense of only the side that agrees with radical gender ideology. The Tumwater Education Association came out on social media, posted this meme or whatever it is: "Dear trans kids, this world is better with you in it, and you are worth fighting for," which I would point out is the first thing Nicole thought too, is who's saying that the world's not better with them in it? Is anybody saying that? Is anybody saying that they wish they'd go away or die or whatever they're trying to suggest here? This is the entirety of the Tumwater Education Association's post. Hate cannot drive out hate. That is why we love and educate all students from all walks of life. Education is a human right. To those who say educators are indoctrinating students, students are teaching educators to accept students for who they really are as humans. We are not indoctrinating students. We are loving our students as they show up in our public schools. We are recognizing our students as they already exist in the world. We are accepting our students as they come to us in order to ensure they are happy and healthy in public schools. Public schools are just that, public. We educate those among the public who already exist. Hatred wrapped in the cloak of euphemisms is still hatred. Only love can drive out hate. To all of our non-binary students reading this post, please know that we love you and see your humanity. So here's the deal with that. It just proves what Frances just said in that interview, where Frances at the end is saying it feels like they don't care about us. It's always about the feelings of transgender students or whatever it is, and they don't have any care or concern for what female athletes are put through, for how female students feel when their spaces are invaded. And you get that vibe from the Tumwater Education Association, where they're saying, we want our students to be happy and healthy in public schools. We want to appreciate everyone. What are you doing to acknowledge and understand the frustration of young women like Frances? In fact, Frances today is being investigated by the Tumwater School District for bullying. Because, admittedly, when she was, I think, leaving the game, she looked at Andy, the transgender athlete, and said, "You're a man." And that was in a moment of intense frustration. But Andy is a boy, a biological boy. And so is that rise to the level of bullying? To not use the correct gender, identity or whatever it is? So this is a ridiculous situation. The Tumwater Education Association is absolutely indoctrinating students, not the other way around. That's what they suggest here is like, oh, it's the students who are indoctrinating us, the students who are teaching us to accept students for who they really are as humans. So there's really no care or concern given to the plight of girls and women in this country who are dealing with men invading their spaces, who have advantages to them. So it's just ridiculous. Shame on the Tumwater Education Association. And I will say, they're being eviscerated in the comments, and there's a little part of me that gets joy out of that. But again, I am very much looking forward to talking to Andy. I think that Andy has a really unique perspective that I've never heard on this show. I don't believe that Andy and Andy's dad are any less worthy of basic decency. And so, yeah, we'll have that conversation. We'll bring it to you on the show tomorrow. It is going to be I can already tell it's going to be a great week on Undivided for sure.